Okay, so I need to read right now to plug myself back into my own process. And it's actually a bit meta here, which has to do with how to practice parinama, which has to do with the devotion to the practice, which is showing up for it consistently. And one of the things that I've been finding is that I've been doing fewer readings, and there's something that I can't exactly like explain, which is that how the reading and how just like working with this process kind of does work on me, on people who use it. But here I am. Oh, I want to make sure my kitty doesn't fall. Are you okay? Do you want my leg? Here. There you go. Okay. So I was just realizing just now that like there's a particular feeling that comes from this practice, which is like this connection to like a connection to like a level of consciousness, and even like kind of a certain amount of peacefulness. And since the last year, I've been reading most days. In the last few weeks as I've been working on this, it's been slowing down to being like reading every 3 days. It's like I feel the difference. I can feel the difference. So, yeah. So I just want and so right now it's Saturday night, so it's kind of a weird time for me to be sitting down to do this, but I really want to tap back in. So I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read, and also the next section here, this is page 300. And this is in the creating and building process. And this is part of like in the previous sections, which is the getting to work sections. Like purpose now is part of how we're getting activated for taking action. I guess it's taking action is what it's called. Okay, so I'm just going to read, and this is pretty it's they've been like I've been feeling kind of rusty in this, but I like so on one hand I could be like showing up and like being perfect and trying to sound like I have like like this is easy to listen to and blah blah blah, but this is actually kind of meta in the practice, which has to do with showing up at, and very very much a third hub thing is like showing up as you are to the best of your capability. And this is like and so and where perfectionism can get in the way, where it's like there's a certain amount of energy to give in a moment, in a given moment, and it's like, "Oh, I don't have the energy to do it really well." So it's kinda like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do it." And so what I'm presenting here is kind of like a messy, like yeah, like a sort of like a messy, weird reading. Been a few of those recently, but, nonetheless, here we go. Let's do it. Like, look how tired I look. I look pretty sleepy. My hair is, of course, a mess. So I'm gonna start reading here. And once again, we're on page 300 of the Parinama method. I wonder if this will make it better. Probably not. Okay. Maybe I'll hold the book up a little bit here so make my eyes won't go goo goo gaga. Okay, so if you don't connect to both your personal reason for doing this, fifth hub exploration, and to devotional discipline, third and fourth hub, before you enter the arena, you may find yourself easily weakened by the challenges you face. The earliest hubs provide the connection to meaning, and the people who skip these steps enter this warrior stage unprepared, finding themselves easily overwhelmed and outmatched by the force of resistance. They may blame outside parties for their lack of preparation, but as I discussed, the captain takes ultimate responsibility and accountability. In the third hub, perfection is the enemy of good. Yeah. How perfectly exemplified. Um And moving forward with your best available effort and wow, that is so weird. That's wild. And moving forward with your best available effort in each moment is the practice. So, expecting that the undertaking will always feel great and be easy, along with the contamination of perfectionism, creates drag, which only slows you down, or in some cases, stops you entirely, by the way. I think when I was writing this, I didn't think about that because I was like in such a kind of like, yeah, but it's also, like, can be completely stopping like, stoppage. Because there is an aspect to this, which is about energy and, like, sourcing energy and so one thing I would say that is, like, why we do the ascending path first is that where the energy comes from is the second hub. It's the fuel, it's the juice, it's, like, the movement, it's the activation, it's, like, the feeling. And, one of the things that, as someone who's like, I don't know what you'd call it about how I work with people on this. I don't wanna call it a teacher. As I work with people on this, one of the things I find is that people who are burnt out and also have, like, a lot of issues with energy also have a lot of issues about being disembodied. So it's like there's just no access to where, like, it's like thinking about it like the fuel, and the 3rd hub's the engine, and that the 2nd hub provides, like, the I don't know, like, the juice for it that it runs on, the energy component, and that comes from feeling. Like, think about feelings are energy. The dullness of not feeling is like a very pronounced experience and so to like move your body and that's something I'm saying this and I'm also thinking about how it applies to me right now as it's winter here in Boston that like a lot of this has to do with how much available energy you have in the descending path and making the best use of it and that you can. So staying connected to your purpose will carry you through the dark times. Remember why this project matters to you and write it down. Put the reminder in a place where you will see it often or will know to look for it when you need to. Also remember why this matters for other people. Write that down too and put it somewhere to be consistently reminded. This part is hard, so before you need them, make the reminders of why you're creating. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling kind of like a little bit of resistance about like talking about this for myself, but why not? I'll just say it. So one of the things about my personal experience with Parinama and this practice is like the self-actualization provides this kind of like release from ambition in the sense of being, like, scared or trying to outrun shame or prove anybody wrong, and it connects into kind of this more, like, benevolent relationship with myself and the world, but it also like, my access to ambition is, like, definitely affected, and that's something that, 10 years ago when I was, like, studying in India, I accessed this kind of, like, level of, like, release from, like people call it, like, ego death and things like that. And I remember, like, I clawed back because I could feel that I had, like, that there was no ambition. Like, I could feel that it was, like, just this total acceptance of things. And so now and this has to do with, like, connecting to purpose, which is so now it's, like, what I need in my process, for some people, it's connecting to, like, whatever it is that, like, has a lot of emotional activation and resonance, and for me, like, tonight, when I was, like, walking in Boston, I saw, someone sleeping in, like, a self-made, like, bespoke tent, and I was like, "That has to be something that activates me." Like, I can't like, that's something like, my humanization because, the other thing is to look at that and be like, "That's just how it goes." It's like, it's not how it goes. That's, like, dehumanized to rationalize that somebody suffers that way, and that's just a product of this system. So, not so I'm like so part of my thing is looking at that and being like, "Well, okay, like, that's why, like, reading from this I felt really called to do it right now and just wanting to, like, sort of tap in, and it just happened to be, like, the perfect section. But that for me is part of my own process, which is finding the purpose when I don't have the same sort of, like, attachments that I used to have about, like, fear and shame and anxiety. So that's part of, like, uniquely my process. Everybody has their own thing. Um, so yeah, I know I was feeling, like, sort of reluctant about sharing that because it seems kinda like, "Ooh." Uh, so, okay, so well, let's see what I have to say next. So when I decided to write Parinama Method, I thought the manuscript's development, research, organization, and writing would take about 3 months. Yeah, okay. It took more than 3 years. At one point, I covered my refrigerator door with written notes and letters from people thanking me for making a difference in their lives. I also wrote notes as daily reminders about my goals for this project and put them where I could see them. And that has a lot to do with, like, I mean, it hasn't been I haven't plainly stated it because I think I was kind of, like, holding back, but just, like, freedom, like human liberation, and that we share this and that we are all like, that we can all be free. Um, and so I'd, like, write stuff like that. Where's my little note? I can't believe it's not, like, right here. Mm-mm. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's bad. It's like, oh, shoot. Where's my thingy? My familiar, my note with my purpose on it. Come on now, Katie. You got it. I know it's in here. Come on now. Oh, that's, like, real oh, yeah. Okay. So I commit to living in my zone of genius now and forever. I expand in abundance, success, and love every day as I inspire those around me to do the same. And look, it's crusty. You can see. It's crusty. Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I don't know why this just occurred to me, but when it's kinda a couple layers on this one, but when I worked for Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical company, which is nuts because I was watching a documentary about insulin today. So this one has a couple different conflicting notes for me, but I used to have a Post-it note, and this is before I even knew about, like, kind of this stuff. I'd been taught about this stuff, but I wrote a note that said, "I'm number 1 in the country." And I put it on a Post-it note above my desk, and this was the first time I'd ever experienced it, because as, like, working this way, is that I would just kind of look at it, and it became, like, I'd sort of register it on, like, ongoing, and then, like, down the road when I was number 1 in the country and I was like, "Oh, yeah. That yeah, okay." Like, there's that. So this is actually very I hadn't, connected that until right now. Yeah. So what do you know? So let's see. Okay, I also wrote notes and daily reminders about my goals for the project and put them where I could see them. When I looked at all the notes and letters, I was reminded that I had a larger contribution to make in the world and that I was in the process of building it. Funny, that's kind of still happening right now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'd be interesting to talk about in this format, like, kind of what I'm battling out right now in terms of my interest of being, like, a talking head for this, because a really big part of the existence of Parinama is that this would be something that you, a reader, could use as sort of self-guided in finding this, because when I intervene with it, I'm actually, like, externalizing a lot of what this process is about, which is about, like, you're, like, accessing your sort of interior unity. So, yeah, so that's something right now with this creating and building thing I'm trying to figure out. Um, and it's been a weird thing with social media where I really am like, "Oh, my." Oh, yeah, I guess I'm, like, sort of working through that. So, another way to stay connected to purpose is to put a few bullet points of your intentions and aspirations on a note in your phone. Oh, yeah, that you look at every few days. They should reflect what you aspire to build, what you wanna do for the world, and how it will change lives, including your own. Then bring some of the good feelings into your body, access and activate the future state you're building. And I actually have that. I do these things, okay? This is a really and actually the note that's on my phone is like, talk about crusty and dusty. Um, well, the liberation blueprint. I desire to grow peace. Yeah. I love myself unconditionally as I'm right now. I wrote that before I did, by the way. I love myself unconditionally as I am right now. I wrote that before I did. Like the I desire to grow peace parinama is a life-changing framework for others, and, a phenomenon and there's also like, wow in all caps. So this is about kinda stoking, like, emotion with it. So it's a reminder when reading it to bring the feeling into my body. So I'll be like, "Oh my gosh." So it kinda creates the magnetic aspect of kinda drawing it inward, and, whether some folks believe in that or not, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, the liberation blueprint. And there's stuff in here that just has to do with my desire for, like, what I want for other people, and I think that one of the things with it is it's really none of my business, like, what is, like, the best thing for other people, and that's also part of this process for me is that, now, in my own process with this, it's like there's a thing where it's like, okay, to what extent am I supposed to, A, put myself forward in presenting this, and second of all, like, how much of my business is somebody else's process with this? I'm just like, and these are, going back to the, um, the first step in this is, like, inquiry. So these are the questions I'm asking that I don't know the answers to, and they're just, like, so it's, like, opening myself up to seeing that, and some of what's coming up is making me really uncomfortable, which is that I do have to, put myself out there more, and I'm really resisting it. 'Cause this forum for me has become pretty comfortable because it's like it's kind of hidden in, like, super low production value, and the fact that it's, like, kind of in a little pocket, like a secret little pocket on the internet. So, it lives like that, and, but yeah. And so, I mean, I guess the thing is, like, right now, I'm doing this reading right now for me because I really wanna check in, like, I really wanna reconnect in on this, but also, I think talking about this is, like, as I've mentioned in the previous readings, it's really, to me, helpful when and this is, like, really informs a lot of the way that I, like, work with people is kind of like the right level of disclosure that is authentic, that isn't talking points, and that isn't, trying to pitch myself as a person who really has everything figured out. I think one of the things of, people who present themselves as, like, really together and having everything really, like, worked out in this very particular way, like, nothing happens in a framework is like an organizing principle, but life isn't life doesn't operate, like, sort of in this, like, a real rigid kind of, sequentialness. So part of the thing is it's just like using a framework as an orienting principle to kind of see where you are and sort of help with like orientation, like a North Star kind of thing. And sort of like, yeah. And so it's like showing that even, so I guess one of the things is like, okay, so, technically as the author of this, that and someone who's executed this to, great success in previous eras of my life, in other eras of my life, that like even like to continue to like expand and elevate, there's just it's like it stays messy because you're continuing to expand, and the more kind of controlled and organized and like 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 every step ahead, it to me that's like playing small. That's been like I've been here before and I'm just doing it again. And so, so if it feels messy, it's like kind of find that exciting, which is like I'm doing the work, I'm in it, I'm creating. And part of creating is, truly creating is to create something that doesn't exist yet. So of course it will like the orienteering will be, have this particular quality to it. So, the purpose, and going back to the reading on this is a good like there's a lot in here that I pulled forward that is like good. Like, so I'm talking through this for, my own benefit as like to recall and also kind of like see things anew for the first time is, one of the things I used to do, I had a team and I was really struggling under how hard it was. And this is like now a little while ago. And this is where this started, like this notion of like write it down as kind of like putting a stake in the ground. It's like what matters. So the thing is for in this particular exercise, it's like write down like what and why. Like and really like something that's kind of like when the wind starts blowing and like it's just when it's like the foundation starts shaking, or it's like that, the squalls start, whatever, and that it's like you kind of like, it's like you can reorient yourself. And so this is for this, I'm actually going to do this, off camera, as I've been doing with all of this. But I wrote down, I remember I was like in this particular situation, the squalls were so high and I felt so responsible for so many people and their livelihood, and I knew what their families, and I cared about them, and part of why we were so successful was the level of care was probably, like, was unsustainable. If I'm gonna be honest, I was still figuring a lot of stuff out, about being a leader. And even to an extent, like a certain aspect of delegation and, um, and and empowerment of people, which was to understand that, like, it's like to try to, like, keep everyone safe and outside of challenges is, like, robbing them of their development, It's, like, really, like, great, like, sort of, like, you know, um, like, I don't know, parenting, I'll call it, is the only thing that's coming up, is that you're giving, like, manageable stressors that empower somebody to, like, overcome them and, like, learn that they like, become stronger and grow. But anyway, so I was, like, taking on a ton of water because I was, certainly didn't know how to, like, emotionally manage the level of responsibility that I had. And so what I did is I was like, okay, well, to orient myself, and this is a little different than this purpose, but I wrote down what are the things that don't change? What are the things that are important that don't change regardless of the outcome of like anything here? And it was like, and so like some examples here that I'll use as like broad examples are the love of certain people, are connections to things, like connections to nature, to the fact that, like, the sun rises and sets, even things like the things that outside of the situation that, like, the love, It's like, okay, well, and also one of the things is to realize it's like, okay, well, these are the things that really matter to me. So are there things that I'm doing here that are affecting those aspects that are like the foundational forces in my life? Am I compromising those, by not being present for people, which was something I was also doing at the time. But anyway, that's like kind of a digression. Yeah. So yeah, so this one's probably the most sort of philosophical one, because the next kind of tenets of the taking action third hub are making tasks manageable, planning and follow through, accountability, handling obstacles and distractions, and delegating. So those are pretty like some of this stuff, especially in the third hub, sort of if for anybody who's ever like worked for me, it's kind of there's like that has that kind of energy. Or like if you're sitting with me, like because some of this other stuff is like way more esoteric and certainly not like workplace style, though that hasn't stopped me before. Yeah. Yeah, it has not stopped me before, but anyway. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so when I'm tapping into my own North Star in terms of purpose here, and I've been remembering a lot of stuff about when I was in the creating of this book, which is interesting because it's like there was a lot of stuff that was coming back to me about the music I was listening to, some of the things I was doing, some of the things I was thinking about, the state of mind I was in. There's, painting I bought, and and that would get really like in the subject matter that's in this in the methodology, as people who are in it understand, it is really becomes like very evocative. And so like in it, when I was in it, it was like, I mean, I was just saying like ridden around town like a town bicycle. It was so hard. There were times where I was just like on the floor because it was just reconciling the adaptations of my own. It was just like, oh my God. I used to describe it as vivisection. It's like having, and this is now very topical, but having surgery without anesthesia. Which at this point in time is happening to people in the world. But the experience of that, and one of the things that really like kept me going, there are two kind of parts of this, two things that were really important. And one of them was that like my orienting North Star was there's nothing wrong with me. Whenever I started to get overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, all these things, oh my gosh, all these things, all these things, all these things to reconcile, I'd be like, yeah, the thing though is that where this is taking me, it like I knew that this is taking me to understand that I'm not inherently flawed. Like this is like working through my notion that this stuff is like patterned into me like shame or chronic fear or feeling like unworthy or like that stuff. And it would be like in the like being thrown around and just being like keep looking, keep the eye on the northern star of this. And so this was something I came to know, truly know, because it was just absolutely so like fortifying. And it like actually like took me through like one of the most difficult things I could ever imagine um undertaking in terms of like a philosophical undertaking. I mean, I'm not, in Gaza right now. Um but like just for, yeah, for the process of that, of like really looking into things, and also like what gets revealed is really, really difficult, because one of the things that is revealed is, like, for me, I would say the role I play in systems of oppression, and how those affect me, like who I am and what I am and my perception, my perspective on things. So rolling that stuff back, it's really ugly. It's really ugly. So it's like to be in that, to like be able to understand that's not me, that I'm rolling back something about, I don't know, oh, what, like, but that it's like washing off the barnacles kind of thing. And the other thing was that every single human being's life is important. So the 2 parts was, one was like, there was, to keep me going, when things became really hard, where like there's nothing wrong with me. This isn't really about finding fault. It's about clearing, it's like working through unconscious beliefs and patterns and adaptations. The other part is that every single human being has something really important to contribute. And it's not like this contribution, like where it, like in this sort of thing where it's like, yeah, it's to be famous, like that's fame and all that stuff. Everything in this system is like cut in half and flipped backwards. It's like orienting around what the values are that we're presented with, is just, it's like keeping on getting like, it's basically like putting a big light somewhere else in the sky and be like, that's the North Star. And it's like your North Star is something that you uncover through this process in yourself, and then you're orienting it, and then it can speak to you and reveal things to you um about like living your life and feeling it fully, and and just to feel your life and to liberate yourself really matters. So for every person, this idea that you're supposed to like do all this stuff for other people, but if you liberate yourself, everything around you changes and everybody's impacted who comes into contact with you. So like the importance of that. So that to me is the purpose, is like that's what it's just all I want for people. It's all I want is for people to know this and to have this. And so part of what I need to find is how to activate myself, and how, and work through some of the things I just discussed earlier, which have to do with like kind of like, am I supposed to intercede? Am I supposed to like, like, and also I don't really want to be like central. These old models of like the, sort of gurus and messiahs and stuff like that. It's you, it's in you. Like this quality is inside, like this like this, and it's magnificent. And I guess, as far as my purpose is just that you would find it, that you would be able to have access to it in any way possible. There's absolutely nothing to do with Parinama method. I have no problem with that. All that matters to me, I don't know, is it like you can know this love, can wake up in love every day. All right. So thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm tapped. I think I'm tapped back in. We'll see. We'll see. I'm sending you so much love and appreciation. And it's like, and I like, all I can say is that it's kind of like the one thing I know for sure is that like you're a miracle. And the thing about mattering, like how you matter in this way that's like so extraordinary and magnificent, is like in the construct that we're kind of like fed into. It doesn't it's like where everything's sort of like hierarchical and relative. So it's like, well, I have power because I have power over other people, or I have power because I'm recognized by other people who have power. So that's like, validating this kind of thing that exclusivity is what makes something extraordinary. I mean, it's like luxury, like the idea that, it's like, you think about like salt used to be luxury. Like salt was like aristocracy condiment, and then everyone has it, and it's just not luxury anymore, but it's luxury. But it's just not luxury anymore because everybody has it. Like this notion of luxury, this like the quality and the fullness of life, like what we have the possibility to access. And that's the model that it's like seeking to disrupt that model that it's like your extraordinariness is like, well, I'm extraordinary because I stand out relative to other people in being like somehow more. But it's kind of like this field of magnificence. So it isn't like, it's not competition and comparison. It's like your magnificence is, and it's like, and the more elevated outside of that construct that like the more we can access that, the more like this kind of elevation like of the like lived experience happens, and the more the people like people can, we have the opportunity to sort of passively impact people. Because the other thing is like when we're like, so one of the things about like comparison, comparison is the thief of joy. When we have it subconsciously in this underlying thing of like always feeling challenged, and the thing that our worth is relative, like there's only so much worth to go around. There's only so much like value and power, and everything is relative, is that every interaction brings it with it sort of this kind of like feral quality of like a face off. So it's like, how am I, it's like, I remember when I was in my 20s, it's kind of wild. Like when I was in my 20s, I would look at other women, and I would just like like absolutely like just look for anything wrong that I could find. And then if there were, it's like I'd look for things. It would be like, is there anything I can find with them that's going to make me feel better? To be like, see, no, they're not that great. Like, oh, well, yeah, but it's that, and it's just one of those things. Like now I look back at some of those same like icons and people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. Like like to be able to see now, like, or just like, oh, they're so like, wow, that's so magnificent. Where like when I was protecting myself with comparison, like what I was doing is I was like isolating myself from joy. So it's even like, one of the kind of tools to use is like when we see something that we'd potentially envy, instead of trying to cut it down, kind of go, yeah, that's for me. And that's it. And that's just sort of a way to like stay in a positive energy. Like that's for me. That's my kind of thing. Like that's for me. That energy, that look, that whatever. Like whenever I see anything that activates me, I look and I go, yeah, that's for me. That beauty, that's for me. That's my kind of thing. Like that's my kind of thing. That's mine. Where I'm sort of trying to draw it in for myself. And also like the awareness of like, these are the things that I like. These are the things I want for myself. I'm not trying to repulse them. I'm actually trying to draw them in. I'm trying, like, these are things I'd like. So yeah. Yeah. So there's that. So anyway, try, this is like attempt, I think number 3 to wrap this up. So thank you. 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 And next time we'll be making tasks manageable, planning and follow through. But until then, I am sending you so much love and appreciation. Yeah. Thank you. I hope to see you next time. I think that God, I wonder how many there's like 300 plus of these now in the lives. So there's that. Okay. Look at me. Yeah, see, showing up imperfect, living the example. All right. Love you. Bye.